Welcome to the Picky Girl Travels podcast, the show for Black women who want more out of life and to live it as they choose. The message here is all about defying convention, embracing adventure, and regretting absolutely nothing. I'm your host, Delia Borishade of PickyGirlTravelsTheWorld.com. Today, I'm really excited for y'all to hear the interview I have today with Alicia Renise, the artist. Check it out. I would normally do your introduction,
Okay.
but I'm gonna mess it up.
It's okay.
So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself because I doubt I would get all of the awesomeness that is you.
Aw, I appreciate that. That's fine. So I am Alicia Renise. I am a multi-passionate creative. I'm a singer-songwriter, a photographer, and a writer. Those are my three main focuses, and I'm a podcaster. So I encourage other Black women to live the life of their dreams starting today and help them to get to their dreams now. So yeah, that's my goal. Yeah.
And those of you that are watching or listening to this, you already know she fits in around here perfectly because we're all about Black women living life on their terms.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I love that.
The thing that really kind of made me say, I got to talk to her was because I saw a video of yours about how hustle culture is not for Black women or not for Black people.
Yes.
And like I said, in that video, you talk about, well, actually, there are two videos of yours that stuck out to me. There's that one, and then I forget the name of the other one, but basically you talk about redefining what success means and not chasing money and that sort of thing.
Yes.
But I'm going to guess that your story is similar to mine, as in you were not born in this place.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you get here where you're thinking this way now?
Yeah. Okay. So no, I wasn't born in this place at all. I was an overachiever. When I was really young, just going back, there was this push, I think, from either society or my family, like to be like using the air quotes, Black excellence. This idea of being using, super Negro, right? Like being able to do it all, like having awesome grades, being talented and using those talents like to become rich and famous, doing all these amazing things. And you have all this pressure on you. So you kind of fall into that, okay, well, let me make my people proud. Let me make my parents proud, my aunties, my grandparents and all that good stuff. So in high school, I tried my best to get scholarships to college. I played sports. I got 4.12s on my what do you call it? Report cards, because I was in AP classes. I was really doing the most because I really wanted to make it, right? I really wanted to make it. And, but even as a child, I wasn't always like that. When I was a child, I was free. Like I was, out there imagining things, I was building things. But I think the older you get, like the less opportunity you have to really chase your dreams. And it's more about like, oh no, you need to make money. Like you need to do something that makes money. So in high school, I knew that I had to make money. So I put all my creative stuff to the side. And I was like, all right, what can I major in to make money? And so I decided to become an ASL interpreter. And so I went to school for ASL, for deaf studies, specifically at Towson University in Baltimore. And when I was there, it was kind of a culture shock for me, because I grew up in PG County, Maryland. So that's a Black county, majority Black. And when I got to Towson, it was like a culture shock. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is different. Like, I'm around a bunch of like other white folks and seeing like how much pressure like Black people were putting on themselves, whereas their white counterparts weren't really putting that kind of pressure on themselves. Like they were just kind of, just going with the flow, like life. And this is like using broad strokes, right? Like life was kind of like handed to them in some ways. They can show up to class in PJs and stuff like that. And it was fine. And so I was working really, really hard in college and I was burnt out. It was my freshman year. I'll never forget it. I was burnt out. I was staying up late and I got sick. And I was like, this is supposed to be the norm, like staying up late, overworking, stressing yourself out. Like this is what college culture is about. And my body literally was like, we're not doing this. Like, I literally cannot do this with you. And it shut down on me. That fall, I got the flu. That's when swine flu was, people were afraid of it. And I thought I got it, but I didn't. I just had the flu because I was just overworked and stressed out. And I realized that when I opted out of stressing myself out in college, that's when people started looking at me strange. And like, it's almost like I wasn't taken seriously because I didn't want to stress myself out. Does that make sense? Like, it was like the badge of honor was working really, really hard. And I was just not interested in working really, really hard anymore. And so back then I didn't have words for it, but now on the other side, it took me 9 years to get my degree. And I took my time. It's okay. It took me 9 years to get my degree, and I'm not even using it now. But I realized looking back that if I had really gave myself permission, I wouldn't have been in college at all. Like, it just wasn't, you know what I mean? For some people, it's wonderful,
oh, no,
right?
I know. Yes. I've been thinking about lately, I've seen several memes about, what if you had followed what you had dreamed of being when you were a kid, blah, blah, blah. And this is really sad and messed up, but I can't remember dreaming. I wasn't allowed to, because it was like, I know I have to get a job. I know I have to be able to support myself. So there really wasn't space to have these fanciful ideas and these dreams. So no, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I really, as much as I love learning and reading and all that, I really had no interest in going to college. Yeah. But it was like, well, what else do you do if you need to get a job? Exactly. So it was expected of me, and I went. Yes. So no, I get that completely. Yes. Yeah, I wasn't looking back, I wasn't a person made for college. Like much like you, I love learning. I would love to do an internship where I learn from people like hands-on. But as far as like sitting in a classroom all day, like they're really just priming you to be workers. Like get on the schedule, like even in school, like grade school. Like, why are the kids? That's exactly where that schedule comes from. Oh my God. It was strategically put together to gear people to work in factories. That's why you have to be there at a certain time. You do this at a certain time. You have a break at a certain time, so on and so forth. Oh no, that's exactly what it is. Yes. And this is coming from somebody who taught K-12. So yeah. Yeah. Like you hit the nail on the head there. Yes. Yes. And I also realized, I'm just going to say it, a lot of colleges are a scam. I know some people have to go to college for, like, if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, like, yes, please, like, get the training and stuff. However, it's a money grab. And so I saw people struggling. I saw people taking out loans, including myself, like just these major loans that no 18 or 17-year-old should be able to take out on their own, just to be able to afford the opportunity to hopefully get a degree, to hopefully get a job. And when I graduated from high school, I graduated 2008. And so in 2008 and 2009, that's when everything crashed. So everything was just topsy-turvy. And I realized at some point after graduating that, like, okay, I have to count my losses, because I'm really not interested in following this path. Like, I'm just not interested in it, just being honest. It made my mother upset. Like, she graduated college in the 70s. And so in the 70s, it was just a very different time. Like, she could actually work a second job to pay her way through. But for me, I just realized where my mother is now, I don't want to be, if I'm just being very honest. Like, at this point, she's 65. They were going to cut her from her job that she'd been working for 30 plus years. And I really saw how disposable, like, the people were at her job. And so I'm just like, so you're suffering all this time, you're in debt, you're working all these years just for them to throw you away and be like, oh, we're actually going to hire, outside in a different country for your position. So you're not really valued. And I really was just like, okay, something really has to change. And even though I didn't have the words for it, like, all the observations I was taking in, I realized, like, it's really about hustling and grinding and being treated like being honored and revered because of how much labor you take on, like how your labor. Yes, exactly. I mean, if you think about it, and this is something I have struggled with in the last year because I'm technically retired, but when you meet people, that's the first question they ask: what do you do? Yes. Because you and your work, there is no separation there. Exactly. And so I live in a country where the average person never retires, and then I don't look retirement age. So it it's odd and awkward for me.
Yeah.
But when you said you decided to cut your losses, that's a bold thing, because everything we are taught, everything we're socialized to believe says, no, you went to school for that. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to continue down this path. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty bold.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that. At the time, it felt you kind of feel like a wimp, right? Like,
no, I'm sure you felt like you were letting people down and you were a disappointment.
Yeah.
But in actuality, what you did or what the decision you made was very bold.
Exactly. And standing in that decision, I realized, okay, I was never really listening to myself. Like, what was I really listening to going to school? What was I really listening to when I picked my major? All these different things. When I was trying to make, 4.12s on my my GPA, what was I really listening to? And it wasn't me, it was everybody else. And much like you, like, there was no room to really contemplate and to really like check in with self, to be like, okay, what is it that I really enjoy? And how can I really pursue this thing? Right. And so, if I don't pursue what everybody else wants to pursue, maybe I won't have the $1 million house. Maybe I won't have the $1 million car. You know what I mean? But I feel like peace more than anything is more important than that, because I see people working to earn these things that they can't even really use, right? Like they're doing all this work. They're only at home for like 4 hours out of the day. You know what I mean? They're only able to see, waking hours anyway, 4 hours of the day. They're only able to see their kids for like a couple of those hours. And that's kind of like, passing by on the way to bed, on the way to school. And then you get to this older age where it's like, hopefully you still have your health. Hopefully you still have your money, right? Like, hopefully you still, have the want and the desire to go do what you want to do. But I really feel like it's a setup. It's just the whole system is a setup.
Because I'm trying to think of how I want to say this, but really and truly, it is a setup, because basically the system is designed to extract from you your labor during the most healthy years of your life, and dangle in front of you this possibility of, oh, you'll get to do what you want when you're older. Well, one, you're not guaranteed to be older. Two, you're not guaranteed to have the physical ability to do those things.
Exactly.
And it's just been that way for so long. And I blame capitalism, because
same.
that's where it's coming from. But this idea that I suffer now so I can have later, and why can't we live our lives in such a way now that there is joy and there is space for these things?
Exactly.
But I also realize that for a lot of people, when I say stuff like that, I sound pretty far out there. Mm-hmm. But I did make, I guess it was 6 years ago, I really made a decision that, and maybe it's because I tend to be a bit on the morbid side. I just kept thinking, like, if I died tomorrow and this is the best I got, I would be pissed off.
Yes.
So I made a decision that I wanted to live life in such a way that if I did die Tuesday, I was like, hey, at least I got to do the stuff I wanted to do.
Yes. And I don't even think that's morbid. I think that's honest. And I feel like a lot of people live like we're going to live forever, and we're not, right? No. Like, we all have a finite amount of time and energy.
And in the last year and a half, if you didn't believe that before, you should really have had your eyes opened.
Yes. It is a sobering thought, but I think much like you just said, like, realizing I don't have forever. And I really asked myself this. I literally asked myself this question last week, just because I was dealing with fear and like, procrastination and stuff like that. It's like, okay, if I were to pass right now, would I be content with where I am in life right now? And I'm not. And it's not necessarily about like, oh, I didn't go see all the things I wanted to see. I don't have all the things I wanted to have. It's really about being the person that I want to be. And it's just like, I want to be the person that I really want to be,
Yeah.
So,
No, I get it. I get it. There was something you said earlier about when you were at university and the white kids got to be free.
Yes.
And they got, like when you said something about them wearing pajamas to class, I immediately thought, nobody blinks an eye at a white kid showing up in pajamas, a bonnet, purple hair.
Yeah.
Whatever. But we, as Black folks, we don't get that kind of grace. We don't get that kind of space.
No. Yes. So even much like you just mentioned the Bonnet conversation with Monique, I believe Black women don't really have any room to rest. And it's even like using like the word like grace, like you said, right? Like grace is given to someone who has done wrong, and we're kind of extending grace to them to, you know, like, okay, it's fine, whatever, we'll give you this much. But it's almost like in distress, in running errands, in, you know, in everyday life, Black women's bodies are so, like, first of all, let's back to, it all goes back to slavery. In my mind, it all goes back to slavery, right?
It does. 100%.
Right. Yes. And I think about, and I responded to this whole like Monique Bonnet situation, how this is reminiscent of slavery days. Like if one rogue Black enslaved person on the plantation went off, like everybody suffered for it. You know what I'm saying? So that same mentality we carry today. Why is sis wearing a bonnet in the grocery store an issue for you? Like when I see Black women in bonnets in the grocery store, I don't think anything of it. Like it's so wild to me that it really creates a visceral reaction in people. It's just like, sis is probably going to the grocery store. She probably forgot eggs or something. And she's like, oh, I need to go to the store real quick. She's protecting her hair. Like, it's really not that serious. And she goes home.
We've been told, and this goes back to the Black excellence thing,
yes,
that we have to carry the weight of the entire people on our backs. Therefore, you got to look your best when you go out, because what are white folks going to think?
Exactly.
That does not come from, oh, other Black women are going to think, no. Other Black women understand you need to cover your hair, you need to protect your hair. And that's where it comes from. And that's one of the things that I felt like in the midst of that bonnet conversation, not enough people were owning that respectability politics part of it. Like, we have to question, because I'm not going to deny, especially women older than I am, I understand they have that visceral reaction, but ask yourself, why?
Exactly.
Why do I feel this way? Where did that come from?
Exactly.
And I felt like there wasn't enough of that, because I'm very much, because I'm out here being rogue and doing what I want.
Yes.
I'm giving that space to other folks. What you dress like ain't got nothing to do with me.
Not a thing. Not one thing. And much like you said, like, we've never had the opportunity to, it's almost like there's good and bad, right? Because when we see Black folks like, oh, this person is in the Olympics, like we cheer them on, or, you know, if they're a man, like we cheer them on, like, yes, we made it. But at the same token, it's much like, oh, why this person that went crazy had to be Black? Look at us destroying the community. And it's like, yo, like, no, we've never been able to be seen as individual people. And much like you said, like, ask your question, why? Like, one of my friends said about the whole bonnet thing, oh, it's just not correct. Like, it's just not correct to walk out of your house with a bonnet. And I really asked him, I said, why? Why is that?
Because how is a bonnet different than a head wrap?
Exactly. It just looks prettier to you. And also understanding, like, and I get so passionate. But understanding, like, how much, no matter what we do, everything we do is going to be either ghetto, is going to be lower class, until someone deems it appropriate to make money off of, right?
Yeah.
So, and one thing Black people do is that we do oppression well. Like, we wear it very well. Like, where did head wraps come from? We couldn't show our hair. Like, so we said, okay, can't show our hair, fine. We're going to put on decorated wraps on our head and stuff like that. So when I see a Black woman in her bonnet, standing in all her beauty and glory, and owing nobody anything, right? Like, not owing someone her beauty, or like, oh, I have to dress nicely for you. She's free, and I celebrate her. Like, she doesn't care what you think, and that is revolutionary to me.
Well, so that's another thing. She doesn't care what you think. What you think, people got confused somewhere about. I am entitled to my opinion. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean your opinion carries weight with anybody else or has to be shared in a public forum.
Yep.
Because I could see, you want to wear some booty shorts. Booty shorts, and you're in a church, probably not the best.
Right. Right.
But this idea that I have the right to tell you and what I think of your choice.
Yes.
You don't owe me anything.
No.
But I could be there all day. Yes. Could be there all day. So we're not going to go down there. But But I think that as I started to talk about like this notion of being free or our inability or the reason we don't have that, I think very much goes back to the hustle culture. And, you know, I think as Black people, we get it from both sides. I think in America, capitalism, if you don't prize money and the things that money can buy, you're suspect.
Yes.
But then you add to that element being a Black person, and you must try and you strive for Black excellence at every point in your life, in every way possible. So I can totally see why and how Black people get pulled into that and get pulled down by it.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, much like you were talking about in the past, like respectability politics, right? It literally has gotten us nowhere. I mean, just being honest, like even if we look back in pictures from the 40s, and yes, they look very nice. They look very beautiful, but they were still unfortunately being hung from trees. They were still being hunted. They were still having their towns burned down. Like nobody cares about how you're presented. And I feel like for a lot of people, even like my parents, I feel like the reason why they felt like they had to overachieve is because, again, that Black excellence, like that burden that they shoulder, and also understanding their plight and being like, okay, if you thought that the American dream was what freedom is, like there's a problem, right? Because capitalism is at the heart of it, right? But we have to understand that the reason why capitalism is where it is because of slavery. Slavery built what capitalism is in this country, right?
You couldn't have done that without hundreds of years of free labor.
Exactly. So understanding where I am in this race is I'm 400 plus years behind, and also understanding that gaining what they have comes at a price. And I'm trying to mind what I say, but not saying that you have to enslave people to become wealthy. However, when you look at the most wealthiest people in this country, they're mistreating.
I am a former history teacher. And I will tell you that as I travel the world and people are marveling at these grand things, my mind immediately goes to the number of enslaved people that were necessary to construct X monument, X church, what have you.
Yes.
Because if those people had been compensated, things would look differently.
Absolutely.
There was something you said in your video about hustle culture not being for Black people, that it is a slap in the face to our ancestors.
Yes. And it took me a minute to get here because, like I said, I didn't have the words for it. However, when I think of my grandfather, my mother's side, my grandfather, he built their house from the ground up, and it's still standing to this day. He worked multiple jobs. He had 9 children. He was exhausted. He died exhausted, right? And so he hustled and grinded his whole life and has little to nothing to show for it. And he did that for his family, right? So that they could have something better to aspire to, right? Not labor, right? Like he labored because he wanted his children not to have to aspire to labor like him. And so for me, when I think of stories like that, and I think of the ancestors I've never been able to meet, when I think of how a lot of them have died, with like not a dime to their name, maybe nothing to their name, maybe not even having their name known, right? Like I think about that, and I'm willingly opting into laboring like them, like working to exhaustion, like working to burnout, when in all my privilege that they did not have, don't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? To me, that is a slap in their face. Like they did not labor for me to get here in their great, great, great granddaughter to be like, okay, so now you're working just like me. Like, no, that's not their dream. Like I saw this meme that said, your ancestors' wildest dream wasn't to be a millionaire, it was to take a nap. And when I saw that, like I literally sobbed because it's just like, wow, like just think about like how we can't think about it. We can't understand, right, what it's like to be on a plantation in the heat, like with no one caring about you, treating you like a machine. And low key, all you want to do is just sit down, like to have the choice, to have the option and the agency to be like, okay, I'm not going to work today, or I'm going to work. I'm going to take 2 hours off for the day in high noon. Right. And so, but for us, we're doing the same thing and exhausting ourselves. If I died of a heart attack because I'm stressed out by choice, to me, that is a slap in my ancestors' face. That's just how I feel about that.
There's the capitalism piece of it, because we have basically, if you're not chasing the goal of being rich and having lots of stuff, you are lazy, because we've demonized the poor. And if you don't have it, it's because you're lazy.
Right.
If you don't want it, it's because you're lazy.
Right. And so we're not even going to address. Okay, but go ahead. Sorry.
But so it's like, it's a very hard thing to get on the other side of, because the history of the United States glorifies the Protestant work ethic.
Yes.
But and that then has been used to manipulate and to weaponize capitalism, because if in your other video, you said, I'm not willing to do the work to become a millionaire.
Yeah, no.
And when I heard that, I thought people will interpret that as she's lazy.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, they definitely will. And they definitely have. And I've been seeing this trend that I hope to like make a response to, even people saying like, I don't dream of labor. Like there's been this whole like trend of people talking about that. It's the same idea. Like,
yeah,
I don't dream of labor. And people are literally having they're getting upset at these videos.
And that's where that has coming from, is because think about it. If you demonize people who don't want to opt in, people who want to opt out of the game that you need their labor for.
Yes.
You need to make their choice seem, wrong. You need to make that choice seem wrong. Yes. And what better way to do that than to demonize them, than to label them as lazy?
Exactly.
And if you're not valuing money and chasing the money and participating in the system, then you're lazy, you're wrong, you're all these negative things.
Yes. And I get it, right? Because historically, we've been looked at as lazy, even though like we're the most overworked people in this country.
Because when folks refuse to work for you for free, you call them lazy.
Exactly.
When they want to be compensated.
Imagine that. And then like the people who are the wealthiest in this country don't even do that. Like they're not doing that work. Like they're not doing that work.
That's actually another note I had down here. I said, it's that this goes with the Protestant work ethic. Okay. Mm-hmm. Poor people, like you're supposed to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, blah, blah, blah. Poor people are expected to work. And when I say poor, I'm talking about folks who are not mega wealthy.
Yeah.
Basically the majority of us.
Right.
But really rich people, we love to see them resting, relaxing, being on a yacht, doing all of those things. It's okay for them, but it's not okay for us.
Right. We idolize the people who enslave us. I mean, it's the same feeling that I kind of, and again, I was never enslaved, but I imagine that being enslaved and you see, the person who owns you sitting on their porch, like sipping tea, watching you work in labor, like, oh, that must be the dream. That must be the goal. You know what I'm saying? And so like, in the same way, like you said, like, yeah, this person's on a yacht today. Meanwhile, I'm struggling and trying to figure out how to, pay my bills.
That's the root of why they don't want to really tax the very wealthy, because as long as people buy into the lie that maybe one day too, I can have that kind of money and I don't want to be taxed. Well, the reality is, odds are you're never going to have that money, because especially if you are a person of color, because you're already at a disadvantage because the system is rigged against you, because white people have a 400-year head start. They have a system in place that steadily funnels resources and opportunities to them and not us. But the best thing anybody ever did was convince folks that you work hard, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you too can be a billionaire. No, you cannot.
No.
It is a lie.
It is a lie. And it's also unethical. Like anything, being a billionaire, it's unethical.
Girl, somebody said like, there's no way you can become a billionaire without exploiting people. And they're really not, because I don't think most people can really fathom how much a single billion is. Okay. Let alone, what was it? I was watching something talking about Jeff Bezos when he got divorced, the wife got like $70 billion, 74 billion. And there's no way you can accumulate that kind of money without oppressing people at some point.
Yes.
I'm not saying you can't make millions. Let's say you made your millions in real estate or something where you were not actively exploiting the labor of other people.
Right.
But no, you can't get that kind of money.
No.
And not have done some shady stuff.
Exactly. And I think that's the point. Like, that's why I'm not willing to do that work. Like, so me and my husband used to RV full time. And when we were living in our RV, we really realized how much more free we were, how much less money we needed, how much how much less stuff we felt like we needed, and really just like unplugging from the, sticks and bricks, like I guess lifestyle, and really going into the RVing, it really opened my eyes to see like, okay, this is true freedom. Like having the option, like having the ability to travel, this is true freedom, but also that's a slippery slope because people, again, gentrify everything, right? People colonize everything. There are people who have been living in their cars forever, like who have been living in their cars because they don't have a choice but to live in their car. And y'all have called them bums or like, oh, they're lazy, they're opting out of it.
You look at, what are they? Irish travelers, the Roma people who have historically been very mobile. And no, that's part of the reason those people were ostracized.
Yes.
Is because they were, I don't know if it was a choice to opt out of the traditional way, but living the way they did, people in regular society were like, no, we don't mess with y'all. Something wrong with y'all.
That's crazy. And yeah, once you do choose to opt out of what people are normally doing, you become a kind of a pariah. One, because it's like, yeah, people don't know what to do with that. Like, oh, how dare you think differently than us, right? But also it really wakes up something in them. And it's like, dang, this person's doing it. Why can't I do that? You know what I mean? And some people have a negative response to that. Like, I want you to suffer like me, just because, just being honest, like we don't want to feel alone in our struggles. But when you show someone that you actually do have a choice, like you have a choice, you don't have to do this. And I say that, because not everybody's privileged to have the same choices. Everybody doesn't have the same options. Let's, be clear. But I feel like we all have a little bit of choice to determine what our success in our own lives look like and to work towards that thing. And it doesn't have to be, again, Jeff Bezos. It doesn't have to be Jay-Z. And even these people who are entertainers, like people we look at, and I'm going to release a video soon, talk about no one is self-made. This idea of a self-made millionaire is not true. Like it's not real. Everybody is made off the backs of other people, even if it's just your teacher or the lunch lady, like someone is helping you to get there. And I feel like there is this kind of like, it's like, how do we miss that point? You know what I mean? Looking up to these people. So, but anyway, yes.
I think there is an element of when you buck the system, when you opt out, it forces people to do a little reflection. And I think there are times when they start to ask themselves uncomfortable questions and they don't like that discomfort.
That's good.
And instead of exploring, well, why am I continuing down this route, it's easier to sort of lash out at the people who are disrupting what they were perfectly fine with until you went off and started doing this weird shit.
Exactly.
And now you've got them questioning like their choices. I think sometimes that lashing out, that's where it comes from.
Yes, I agree. Even like the name calling, oh, you're just a hippie, or you're being unreasonable, or it's like, am I? Like, I just want to be happy and have my own little slice of happiness and not bother nobody else.
I have to wonder, because you are a multi-passionate creative, and I know that creatives are always caught up in this. Well, what are you going to do? How are you going to pay your bills? What are you going to really do? I know you like doing that.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do to pay your bills? Like art isn't going to pay your bills. And so do you feel like you deal with more pressure to hustle?
Yes, I do. Even when I think of like when I was younger and I would sing, and this is, I'm not, railing on my mom or anything, but she was like, you need to do American Idol. Like, you need to go try out for these, like, these singing competitions and stuff like that they would have around the community. And I'm just not interested in competing. It's just not something you know what I mean? Like, we can all win. We can all be talented. It's all good. You
like the art for the sake of the art. You don't need to monetize it. You don't need to compete.
Yeah.
Capitalism, American culture tells you whatever it is that you're doing, or you like to do, you've got to find a way to monetize it or find a way to profit in some way. So I know your mom was coming at you from a very good place.
Yes, of course.
But
yeah,
I do get what you mean. Like, well, no, I just want to sing. I don't need to.
Yeah. And I also wanted to determine like what success looked like for me. Like one, I don't like competing because I don't like selfishly, I don't like feeling like I'm less than anybody else. Right. And that creates an environment where you feel less than, or where you always have to like be going after somebody else. When in reality, I feel like we're all gifted, and our gifts are different and are different on purpose, and it's okay. And also, I don't want anybody else to feel less than, because say if I get ahead of somebody else, they're like, oh, you're so talented. It's like, so are you. Like, we can all be talented. But I also, when I was younger, I thought the only way to make it was like, oh, I got to get signed by a record deal. And so I knew that I did not have the look. I did not have the sound. Like I didn't, just being honest, like I'm not what's marketed out there today. And that's okay. Right. And I know that's okay now, but that caused a lot of low self-esteem in me. And, and I'm not even in the industry yet. Right. So it's like, okay, like this doesn't feel good to me, but I'm glad that I did listen, because had I been out there, I probably would have been somebody totally different. I wouldn't have been myself. Like I would have felt like, oh, if this is not marketable, I can't do this. But now on the other side, being an artist, even today, people do ask you like, oh, well, what do you do for real money? You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, like I still try to make money with my music, with my art and stuff like that, but just looks different. It's not going to be me signed to a record label, right? So, and really being okay with, like I talked about this before. Yeah, I might not ever sell out the arena, like what is that, Madison Square Garden in New York, right? I might not ever do that, and that's okay with me, because I'm an introvert, and to me, that many people is like, whoa, right? Calm down. But what I could do is I might, and which I really want to do, is go on tour in my RV and set up places and sing songs to people and have them donate money, like, or purchase merch or something, like finding other ways to do stuff. Like maybe for another artist, like they sing, but they want to sing to the babies in the library, so single moms can come and like, or stay-at-home moms can come, bring their babies, have something to do, like, and entertain their kids for an hour. Like you can find your own little slice of like heaven in whatever field you're in, art or not art, you know what I'm saying? And I really feel like once we start exploring those things, more options are available to us. So yeah.
Redefine, and that is a theme that has run through this podcast of deciding what is it that you want your life to look like? What does it mean to have success for you? And that I do this work because somebody needs to have an outside voice say, it's okay.
Yeah.
You have permission to opt into doing something differently.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. But that question, but what do you do for real money? That's an interesting question, because real money.
Yeah.
What's, like that whole concept, like real money, like, but because that's the goal. You need to, and real money is a lot of money.
Exactly.
And then again, but what do you do?
Right. Exactly. It all goes back to that.
Because again, you have to have a job. If you just say, well, I am an artist, I make art. In our society, that's not enough. That's okay as a hobby.
Right.
And I think, well, what does that say about us as people? Again, we're defining people by their labor and the perceived value of that labor.
Yeah.
Like that should bother us. That should make us really question some things. Yeah. Like, I don't know. That question just bothers me.
No, yeah, same, because it's almost like I have to prove to you that what I'm doing is worth my time and energy and effort. I mean, prove to you that my gifts are worth, celebrating and really going all in on it, which is why it took me, I'm 31 now. Like I knew I wanted to sing when I was like 12. I knew I wanted to sing, but because people were telling me this isn't a viable option for me, like, I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I guess I can't do that. I guess it has to be a hobby. I guess it has to like just hang on the shelf. But when we really think about it, we take in art all the time, the buildings that we live in, right? The cars we drive, like the music we listen to, somebody has to create it. And it literally makes life more enjoyable. So why aren't these people worth money? Why isn't that a viable option to make money?
Well, that's just it. Like that the viability is determined by the amount of money you can make, not the satisfaction you get from it, not the joy, not maybe the joy you give other people.
Yes.
That whether or not something is a viable choice for your life comes back to how much money you can make. And again, that should make us feel uncomfortable. We should be no, this is not the way it works.
Yeah.
And what you said about like, there's art everywhere. One of the things, and I'm from Houston. So Houston is notorious for tearing down old shit. Like, that's just how we roll.
Yeah.
So one of the things that strikes me about living here in Mexico City is there are things that are made pretty just for the sake of them being pretty. Yes. And I don't really recall much of that when I lived in the US. Yeah. Like that there is thought, like because when I look at like, it might be the design of a park, it might be, what have you. And it's like, no, this area is just made pretty because they wanted it to look nice, right? Not because they could charge money for people to come here, that sort of thing. And that's one of the things that struck me living here. I was like, we don't really have that at home.
No. And like you said, everything that is made pretty or beautiful, there's a price on it. There's a price to experience it, to see it, to view it. Even living here in the DMV. So like when you were talking about people building, these monuments and stuff like that people come, like DC's right down the street. And, people come like in droves, like just to come look at these buildings without understanding the history of it. It's like, or just like, oh, I just want to take a picture here. Like, and now it's on Instagram. Now I can leave. Like, there's really no like savoring the art, right? Savoring like the stuff that's created, savoring, I don't know. I have feelings about that, but there's no savoring like the work that went into all that work that we sit and admire. And that's I think that's one of the reasons why I love nature. But even then with nature, people put prices on stuff like that. Like I love being able to just sit there and be like, okay, this is beautiful. And it's almost like God created this just to marvel at it, like for no other reason except because, what is the moon? Like, yes, we know the moon, changes with the tides and stuff like that. But there are some things and that's just like, why does that even exist? Except just to be marveled at. And I much like you're saying, like, I feel like we don't leave room to just like sit and marvel at stuff because we're told we don't have enough time for that, right? Stop daydreaming. Stop.
You have to be productive.
You have to be. It's always being productive. And I don't think we're not meant to be. We are works of art. We're not meant to just be productive all the time. We're meant to just be able to sit and admire even the beauty in ourselves and other people. Like, so yeah. Yeah. I think that's awesome that they have that like art just to be admired.
Now, the downside of that is, of course, a lot of the most beautiful pieces here were commissioned during the time of a pretty bad dictator. So,
okay.
There's that part of it too. But because he wanted Mexico to be on par with Europe. And so, because if you think about it, there's a lot more of that in Europe than there is, quote unquote, in the New World. And I think it's, also pre-capitalism. I think it's very hard to separate those things.
It is.
Again, like you said, there are some things that we can that there is no purpose to them other than just to marvel. Yeah. But when you look at capitalism says if it doesn't make money, it doesn't have value. It doesn't make sense.
Yep. And I detest that phrase. Every time, because I have to remind myself of that thing, right? Like I have personal projects I want to do. I have places I want to go. I have things I want to make even for other people. And I'm like, well, dang, how am I going to make money from this? And it's, for some stuff, it's like, I don't have to make money from it. Like, just do it. Like my husband tells me all the time, just do it. Like, right. Like, and I really feel like, and this could be a little, woo woo for some people, but I really feel like, when we're really following like what's in our heart to do, to create, like what we need will show up. And it might not be money, right? It might not be money. If we are like, when we're RVing, for example, there was a time where we ran out of money. Like we were in Fort Myers, Florida. We ran out of money, but we had a rest stop that we could stay at overnight. Like we stayed there for like a month. we had everything we needed. We had food, we had the beach, right? Like it was beautiful. And for some people, they'd be like, oh, you failed. You don't have no money. Like, but for us, like me specifically, I was at peace. I was at peace. Like I wasn't stressed out about paying $1,500 in rent that month. Like, like we're in our RV, we have food, we have each other, and I have the beach. I can go to the beach every single day and be fine. And so I think sometimes when we judge ourselves, when we judge where we are based on capitalism or based on where like society says we should be or what it should look like, it's really easy for us to get down on ourselves and to miss the marvel, to miss what we're supposed to be marveling at. And yeah, like by all means, sure, we failed, but for me, that was one of my favorite times traveling. Period. Like when we had no money, no place to stay, in a rest stop in Fort Myers, Florida. But yeah, and so again, the stuff that you're supposed to do it. Like you never know like what might come from it. And again, you might get more enjoyment and pleasure that money could never bring, right? Like community, people, like, just following the little, oh, maybe this seems interesting to me. Let me try this thing. So yeah.
So what for you, because we've been talking about this whole time, redefining success. What
Yes.
does that look like for you?
Being healthy.
Do you know yet? Because that's
yeah.
another thing is everybody's supposed to know.
Yeah.
And hell, I'm 46 and still figuring it out.
Hey, and I think and I also I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that is true that success isn't just one thing. And I think success changes in different seasons of life. So I think, yeah, when I was in school, I was like, oh, making good grades and, making the dean's list or whatever. And at some point that didn't matter to me anymore. I just wanted to graduate. Right. So for me now, like what I see for success as myself is being content. Number one, being healthy, spirit, soul, and body, like having my mental correct, my body correct. And also being able to create something that makes impact, like that impacts other people, right? Because I don't have a number in my mind, money wise, because the truth is there are people who are millionaires who are miserable, and like it's just like, okay, if I have everything I need, I'm good. So contentment is what I'm after. Success, again, creating art, creating honest art, being authentically me. Like that is my number one goal, to be authentically myself without apology, without like trying to like, tailor back and filter myself. And of course, like not being mean or anything like that, but just being honest. Like just like saying, yeah, I'm an artist, period. And with no explanation, like, like no, like trying to over explain myself. I do that all the time. And I feel like, and it's just aside, like, I feel like Black women specifically are groomed to be apologetic, like from birth. Like we have to apologize for everything, like how our body grows, like how much space we're taking.
Apologize for simply existing.
Yes. And I don't want that for myself. If and when I have kids, I don't want that for them. So I have to get in a place where I am unapologetic, because I remember like just small things, like it's kind of random, but not, but like, I remember my mother saying she doesn't like her knees, and me and her have the same knees. So it's like, oh my God, are my knees ugly too? Like we really pass down this stuff to our people. So I want to be free. I want to create art. I want to free other people to be who they are supposed to be in their life. Right. And also again, like eventually I want to be able to give back in a way, like help people, get healthy food, help people make art, make things that are inaccessible for a lot of people in our community. So yeah. That's kind of like a broad definition of what success is. I don't know specifically what that's going to look like, but I'm open to it. Yeah.
I love that when you said, I want to make art, be an artist, and not have to follow that up with, well, thank you again. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. If y'all want to hear more and see more of the art that Alicia Renise does, where would be a great place for people to find you?
Oh, sure. So I'm everywhere at Alicia Renise. So that's ALECIARENECE. Alicia Renise, Instagram, Facebook. But you can also follow me on YouTube, Alicia Renise, the artist. There, I host all my videos, all podcasts, all that good stuff. Or you can follow me on my website at aliciarenise.com. So yeah, thank you.